Acquiring Kevin Durant is still a possibility for Miami, but what if it doesn't happen? Does Pat Riley have a plan B? We'll go through the options on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg, here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. For daily content on the Heat, click that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you are following us on your favorite podcast app. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins on FanDuel. Have a great show for you today. We're talking about Plan Bs. What happens if the Heat don't land Kevin Durant? What's the backup plan? So, David, I put together a list of names. We're going to go through those names, go through the options, discuss what's most realistic, what it could take to get some of these deals done. Let's just jump right into the first one, which came out in a report today by Michael Scotto, who reported that the Heat maybe perhaps kicking the tires on Jonathan Kuminga. Interesting name there, considering Kuminga's a restricted free agent. Obviously, the Heat have had dealings with the Warriors, considering that they traded Jimmy Butler there. And, we talked about potentially trading Butler to Golden State in like December or something and wondered, hey, would Kuminga be the centerpiece of that deal? And then by the time Jimmy Butler was done torpedoing his own trade value, the Heat couldn't even get Kuminga out of the Warriors. But it was apparent, I thought at least, that there was no room for both Kuminga and Jimmy Butler in Golden State. That fit just doesn't work. And restricted free agent, the buzz in Golden State is all about what happens with Jonathan Kuminga and whether or not they could even get something in return for him, via sign and trade or something like that this summer. My ears perked up at least. It's an interesting name to talk about.
Yeah, it doesn't seem very likely, though. I just can't seem to think about why that's a realistic option for Miami. It seems like that is not the kind of win move now. To go from Kevin Durant, a player that you assume is going to be able to step in right away, contribute at a high level, and maybe put you in the conversation to at least get out of the play-in tournament and certainly at least contend for the Eastern Conference title. If that's the case, I don't think Kuminga moves the needle that way. So are you just saying plan B is basically to kind of start over with a okay player, a decent player with some potential, and maybe just build a younger core and kind of lean into that idea? And I don't even know what it would take to acquire a player like Kuminga. I mean, what are we talking about? Are we sending Andrew Wiggins back to Golden State?
Let's put a pin in that, because that's a whole separate conversation. But yeah, the idea of going from 37-year-old future first ballot Hall of Famer, multi-time Finals MVP Kevin Durant to 22-year-old Jonathan Kuminga, who has to be begged to chase rebounds. You would hope that wouldn't be plan B, right? Like maybe further down the list. But to your point, it would be a very different approach where Kuminga's 22 years old, and to acquire him via sign and trade, it would be like, okay, well, we've got Bam at 27, we've got Tyler Hero at 25, and we've got Kuminga at 22, and we're just going to open up the window a little bit more and see if we can get something out of Kuminga that the Warriors couldn't, or at least get something out of Kuminga more consistently than the Warriors could get out of him. So I don't know. He plays the position of need when you think about it, that 3-4 spot, tons of potential. It would be a big bet on his talent. And we've talked about like those second draft guys and how teams like Indiana have built their team around those second draft guys. Halliburton, not drafted by the Pacers. Obi Toppin, not drafted by the Pacers. Naismith, not drafted by the Pacers. To get Kuminga at potentially a discount, maybe. I don't know. I have no idea what it would cost to get him, to your point.
I'm not saying I'm opposed to the idea. I'm not opposed to the idea. In fact, I think it's a really interesting. It just seems like such a great departure from one option to the other. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's not just plan B, it's plan like Q, maybe at least. And it's also kind of shuffles the team around a little bit and indicates maybe, you know what, we aren't quite ready. But we keep Kel'el Ware, we keep Kuminga now, we have Hero Bam, as you said. This is a much younger core. Maybe contention isn't right away an option, but at least we can develop and put us in a position a year or two from now. And I think that's still a playoff team. Like with that core intact there, I think that's good enough to at least make the playoffs, maybe get out of the play-in tournament. And I think that's okay for Miami right now, because even with the acquisition of Durant, we also question whether or not they'd be legitimate title contenders. So if you're going to at least kind of hold the course, at least this shows a direction that we're leaning more into a youth movement, and we're still a year or two. That's a gamble. It's a risk, because again, with Bam and him being the player that he is, I think he's, despite what some Heat fans might think, I think he is coveted around the league as a valuable player that can contribute in many different ways. So, you risk him demanding a trade at some point if you're not able to contend for a title soon. With the acquisition of Kuminga,
right. You would go into sort of young talent acquisition mode, wouldn't you? Because you wouldn't. Yeah. Would you be giving up pick? I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know how it gets done. I don't even want to take it seriously. I feel like we've already talked about it too long. Like what would Golden State want? Would they want their 20th pick back for Kuminga? That doesn't feel right. Would they want Andrew Wiggins back? Maybe, right? Maybe they realized that they kind of needed Wiggins more than they thought. Right? It would be like, you know what? You take Wiggins, we'll take Kuminga. Let's just trade these pieces in the offseason where we couldn't really do it in the regular season because we needed Wiggins' salary in terms of salary matching. And now in the summer we can flip these guys because you'd rather have Wiggins and we'd rather, I don't know. Who knows?
I want Pat Riley just to be on the phone and say, no take backsies. And that's it. That's how he ends the call and hacks up. That's the Godfather right there.
That's exactly Godfather language. I think I heard Marlon Brando say that once. The other plan B, we've talked about it before, but it feels like we should mention it if we're having a whole show on plan Bs, is DeMar DeRozan. This might be the actual plan B. I don't know.
Yeah.
They could be like, you know what, we're not that interested in DeRozan anyway. But a Wiggins for DeRozan swap feels like it would make both teams better right away and fill major needs for both teams right away. So if you can't get Durant, do you just call up Sacramento and say, look, Wiggins for DeRozan, you get the 3-and-D two-way player that you need around Domantas Sabonis and Zach LaVine, and we get somebody that we could throw the rock to when we need a bucket, and that's it. And then you just move on. No picks, nothing, just moving along. We've talked about that before. We're not opposed to it. It's not ideal, but it would at least do something. Can I throw another name at you?
Yeah, please.
This comes from our friend Matt Moore, who wrote in his Hardwood Paroxysm Substack, maybe keep an eye on RJ Barrett in Toronto.
Oh,
what do you think about Barrett's game?
I've just never been a fan. I mean, the discourse between him and Knicks fans and Heat fans, it's like, oh, RJ Barrett being better than he, kind of soured me on the whole proposition altogether. Barrett's a good player. I think he's so inefficient sometimes that it just kind of takes away from being able to appreciate his game fully. But I think he's got potential there. I just also don't think he's ever been put in a place where he's kind of forced to succeed. And I wonder, I mean, that could be the second draft kind of guy, although you could look at it, Toronto's that opportunity too, and he just really hasn't made the most of it. So I don't know. He's Canadian though, right? I mean, that's part of the idea is keeping him there, isn't he?
Yep, you're right. He's from Toronto.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, if there's going to be a place for him to succeed, shouldn't it be there? Like going back home, etc. Like that should be the place for you to really have a chance to thrive. And it just seems like he really has it. Again, I know that Toronto's also in a place where they're not really contending for anything either. But just individually, you'd think
clearly tanking at the end of the year. He wasn't bad. 21 points per game last year at 47% shooting, 35% from three on pretty decent volume. Gets to the free throw line. 6 rebounds, 5.5 assists. Definitely an offensive leaning player. Has gotten more efficient as his career has gone on, and I think has actually flashed some playmaking things. To your point, David, I think it would be a bet on New York didn't really know what to do with you, and then Jalen Brunson Julius Randle was there, eating up a lot of the touches, and then Brunson got there, and they didn't really know what to do with you at that point. Right. And then in Toronto, they were like, it's Scotty Barnes' team, but he's not really qualified for that, so we're kind of force feeding him here, and then we're going to go ahead and trade for Emmanuel quickly in the RJ Barrett trade, and then quickly was so on the ball. It felt like Barrett had flashes, but and then would like fall off for a week, and you'd be like, what happened to that guy? Is he injured? Nope, he's been out there for 3 straight games, and I just didn't notice him. It's a little Andrew Wigginsy, but I do think that Barrett has way more offensive potential at this point, and offensive want to. I get I get the sense from him that he wants it. It's just been weird situation after weird situation for him. Again, I don't know what the trade would be. Is it Barrett for Wiggins? Canadian for a Canadian? Is it Barrett for Rozier and picks so that Toronto's got like a weird cap situation where they're about to get really expensive and not be good. So they looking to shed one of these salaries, and maybe Rozier helps them do that. I don't know, but I thought it was an interesting name that Matt had in his newsletter, so I thought I would bring it up. Does not feel, though, like a plan B, does it? That feels further down the middle of the alphabet. But let's go real plan Bs, because we kind of talked about some of these other options. Let's go real plan Bs. We're going to do that in the next segment here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA Finals are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win bigs. If you got a read on who's heating up during the middle of the game, well, why not back it up with a same-game parlay? That's the way you could get that $200 bonus bets. If you're new to FanDuel, this is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com right now and place your first $5 bet. And if that bet wins, guess what? You get $200 in bonus bets. So make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We'll be right back.
Let's talk plan Bs. I have two names for you, and then we're going to do a little bit of a fun segment. But the two main names, Lauri Markkanen, Darius Garland. Those to me feel like actual plan Bs. We've talked about both of them a little bit here, but of the two, which one is more interesting to you?
Oh, Markkanen, absolutely. I mean, it's not to say that there's something clearly wrong with Garland's game. Like, he's a great scorer, all-star, etc. But I think I'm trying to think about how that pairing would work. First of all, again, maybe we shouldn't even look at the trade package or whatever, because that just seems almost like impossible to put together. But even on this roster as it's currently constructed, adding Garland to it, I wonder how that would work. In terms of him being an off-ball player, how he finds that balance with Tyler Hero.
Oh, I think Hero's in the trade.
Exactly.
I think
if that's the case, that's why I'm saying, like,
Bam.
even suspending, even not even looking at what Miami would have to give up in order to acquire Garland, would you prefer Darius Garland over Tyler Hero?
It would be a shakeup, right? It would be, this guy is a genius level passer who was an all-star before Donovan Mitchell got there. We think that he could score 21 points per game and average 9 or 10 assists per game for us. And between Garland and Bam and Kel'el Ware, we've got our pick and roll core, and we're just going to surround all those guys with two-way wings and shooting. And that's what we're going to do. I think that's what the bet would be. But to your point,
why would Cleveland want to do that?
Yeah, you're probably needing a third team where Hero goes somewhere, or maybe they do like Tyler Hero as Ty Jerome feels like could be a free agent and leave. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep Sam Merrill around. They obviously value shooting. Hero is a better shooter than anybody they have, despite the fact that they were an awesome shooting team last year. Maybe they like Tyler Hero, or maybe they reroute him to a third team. I don't know. To your point, right? Like, you can't get so in the weeds of what's the trade package look like. You kind of have to answer the first question, which is, do we want this guy? And Garland, based on what he's shown the last 2 years, I don't think it's worth doing all that stuff. But the bet would be, we kind of think he's got a lot more to show that he hasn't been able to show these last couple of years playing next to Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, and in that scenario, I could see Miami talking themselves into it. I mean, yeah, let's suspend Cleveland's interest level for the sake of this discussion. If you're looking at it that way, I just think that Miami believes so firmly what Hero can provide, and for better or for worse, I think they just think that he has yet even another level to achieve. I'd say he's on a par as a scorer with Garland. I'd say he's also even a better defender, right?
Let's call it a wash defensively, because I don't think any of them are making a positive impact. But I think Tyler Hero is a better scorer than Garland. I would take Garland's finishing over Hero's. Garland has an awesome float game. So does Tyler Hero.
So
Hero's a better outside shooter than Garland. But Garland's passing takes him to another. Like I could see a way where you could have I could see where Garland is your primary ball handler on a big time offense, as opposed to where Tyler Hero is clearly limited in terms of being your primary ball handler. But they're the same age. The contracts are not all that different. Garland has one more year under contract at $44.8 million that year that Tyler Hero would be a free agent if he doesn't sign this extension. But both of them are going to need to get paid at some point, and they're both going to be asking for $50+ million a year. So even when you get into the contract stuff, that doesn't even matter here. So no, it's a tough one. But you like Markkanen. Tell me about Markkanen.
I just think that as a complementary player, playing the three, being able to stretch the floor the way he does, being that scorer the way he can, I still don't see him as your 1A though. Like that would be a problem. But I think in terms of complementing, again, I don't know what you'd have to give up in order to acquire him. If you could somehow keep Bam and Hero in that package in order to acquire Markkanen, I think he would be the kind of good complementary player that could help Miami's offense jumpstart it a bit. I think there's still holes in his game in terms of consistency and stuff like that. I think there's questions about it, but I think overall he's still such a valuable player, and I think he has yet even another level to reach. It's just been his career has been so strange, from going to Chicago and then going to Cleveland and then blossoming to some degree there, and then being able to just unlock his game fully on a Utah team that he wasn't going anywhere very fast. So you don't know how he responds to all of a sudden being put in a position where he has to be the team's best player or one of the team's best players on a team that sees itself, for better or for worse, as a team that wants to win, and how he responds to that challenge, I think, to me at least, is a question. But overall, I just think his game fits better in terms of what Miami's looking for and how they could shore up some glaring holes in their offense. Defensively, well, that's a whole other story. I don't know that I would classify him as bad necessarily. I just also don't know that he's necessarily as interested in making an impact defensively as Miami would like him to be.
He's 7 feet tall. You would hope that Spoelstra could just say, hey, we're trying to win games here. That's different than what you've done the last few years in Utah.
Try that one on for size.
Try some weak side defense, block some shots, help side stuff. He's fully capable of that. And just his size alone is a plus defensively, right? But he's at the same time a perfect fit and not at all what Miami is looking for, right? Yep. Like, he is exactly the kind of player you'd want next to Bam Adebayo. And at the same time, I'm with you. He is so far from being a number one scoring option. He is a score. He's basically 7 feet Tyler Hero. That's essentially what Lauri Markkanen is.
That's not bad.
Like, there is zero ball handling playmaking to his game. And even though Utah asked him to do a little bit of it, they've never fully leaned into it, despite the fact that they've got a million rookie point guards. And that to me is a little, that I'm a little concerned about that, right? It's like, well, you guys keep drafting point guards. You have this star player that you're treating like and paying like an all-star. He can't do more ball handling. And they've clearly decided that he can't. And Will Hardy's a good coach, despite the fact that he doesn't get to coach good players. So I trust his opinion on that. So I don't know. This would have been the kind of deal that they should have made when they had Jimmy Butler, right?
Yes.
Where it's like, okay, he could eat some innings during the regular season, and then in the playoffs fall back into a secondary scoring role, and then that lets Bam and Tyler Hero fall back into more tertiary roles. But they don't have that guy. So and I don't think Lauri Markkanen is one of those guys that you could just sort of scoop up on the cheap, right? It would cost quite a bit to get him, and for that reason, to quote Shark Tank, I'm out. A little fun segment here that I want to do. It's called Would You Call? So I got a few names here. We'll do one really quick before we go to break. Would you call about Jaylen Brown?
No. I think same thing. I just don't see him as a number one option legitimately. The amount of money, I think it's all going to come to balance out. You're going to be paying KD a lot of money if you acquire him. You're going to be paying Tyler a lot of money if he gets his extension. The money's going to be spent. It's going to be doled out. I just also tend to think that he's not really your legitimate number one option. And that being the case, he's young, he's talented, he's good. there's something personal that I just don't necessarily think that he has that another level to go to, and the amount of money that he's getting paid to be in Boston's system, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you have Tatum there, Miami doesn't have Tatum, and so Jaylen Brown becomes kind of superfluous. So I just don't. He's angrier, darker Tyler Hero. If we're gonna make that analogy with Lauri Markkanen, like, I mean, that's basically it. Like, he's not your number one, and you're paying him a hell of a lot of money to be something that he shouldn't be.
He's an awesome two-way player, right? There's no question about it. When he's super engaged defensively, and he's a Finals MVP, and he's got moments of looking like a number one scoring option.
Sure.
He feels to me like there's guys that are in Jaylen Brown's position, and you wonder, could you be a number one in a different position? James Harden in Oklahoma City. You know, you think about players like that. Could you be a number one in a different situation? What would that look like? Then there's other players that are like, nope, this was exactly your spot. You got drafted the perfect situation. Jaylen Brown technically got drafted the year before Tatum. Tatum became the number one option. Brown kind of slid into that number two option. I think that's perfect for him. The guy still doesn't dribble very well and isn't an awesome playmaker. And those are the things. It's not just the scoring and the getting downhill and the free throw shooting, getting to the line. He does all those things at a very, very, very high level. And he's a tough shot maker. That guy makes some shots that nobody else in the league makes on a consistent. Like, that guy is a tough shot maker. Those things are number one qualities. But the thing that really unlocks an offense is the playmaking part of it. And I don't think he has that. And I would really be hesitant to see what that looks like. He shows it a little bit in Boston, but he's playing in a 5-out offense with all the space in the world. What does that look like in a more cramped half-court setting for a guy who has who's like, you know, the book is out on the fact that he doesn't have a grade A handle. So that's the part that would freak me out a little bit. I got two more would you call names, plus there's another option that Heat fans definitely won't like, but we have to at least talk about as a possibility. We'll do that next year on Locked On Heat. David, would you call about Ja Morant?
Yeah, I think so. That one seems a little bit easier to swallow from a Heat fan's perspective. I think, the talent is there clearly. The injury concerns are one thing, but again, kind of a restart where you do get that superstar at the same time. Yeah, there is a risk about the injury, but I think it extends your window considerably, and you still get that prime 1A player. And there's always a possibility that he could wind up not getting hurt again. Like, that he can figure it out and just be off the court, more stable, more consistent. On the court, he could be healthier and stay out there for longer periods of time where he can make the kind of incredible impact that we've seen from him in Phoenix. And that being the case, I think it would be a great fit for Miami. I don't know what it would take to acquire him. Again, that's probably not the purpose of this segment. So I would say if you can get a Ja Morant, absolutely you do.
So Ja Morant, the last few years, and there was a suspension in there. 50 games, 9 games, 61 games, 57 games, 63 games, 67 games played. He's never hit 70 games in a year, even in his rookie year. And it's been downhill. Like, he played 67 games his rookie year, never got that far again. Right. When he's on the court, he looks like an MVP sometimes. I mean, there is the force with which he plays. I know his shooting percentages aren't awesome, but he hits levels, man. Like, to trade for Ja Morant wouldn't be hoping that he would repeat what he's done. It would be unlocking that level of consistency that Memphis has been hoping that they can get. He's 25 years old, all the talent in the world. And I look at somebody like Gilbert Arenas, who had injury concerns early in his career and other concerns, similar to Ja Morant. Gets traded from Golden State to Washington and then blossoms in Washington and becomes a guy who in 2005 was averaging 29 points per game, and in 2006, 2007, 28 points per game, which is basically like averaging 40 points per game right now.
Yeah.
On okay percentages. And I just wonder, there have been players over the years who just there's injury issues. Steph Curry was like this, injury issues, yep. And then suddenly they were gone. Suddenly his body just matured to the point where there was stability, and credit to Steph, he put in a ton of work on his body. But that's the problem I would have with Ja. Would be like, are you going to do the work to fix this? or did you get the paycheck and are you good with it? And that would be what I would be trying to figure out and investigating if I were any team potentially trade. But I would call. Can I give you another one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you call about Kawhi?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I mean, still a great player. I just also think like I think you can talk yourself into KD, and I don't think you have to, and I certainly know that we don't have to, but even if you're on the fence about it, you don't really have to talk yourself that much into acquiring a guy like KD because he's not a knucklehead and you don't ever have any off the court concerns. With KD, there's a little bit of baggage there. I just don't know that Miami wants to get into that process of having to cater to somebody who might be available for 50 games a year. They just had that. And
doesn't finish playoff series.
Yeah. That's not what they want. They'd rather have somebody who they can trust and feel.
Can I ask
like
you a
they're
follow-up?
coming to them. Sure.
What if it just cost Wiggins and Rozier? You give the Clippers a chance, get out of jail free.
Yes.
Plug Wiggins in on the wing, take Rozier. You get a bunch of money next year.
Sure. Yeah.
Then it's like,
if that's the case. Yeah. I'm sorry because I hope that he has a bounce back year. I mean, can't get much worse, I hope. But anything's probably to get Rozier a new opportunity because I just don't think he's got it.
So plan B if the Heat don't get Kevin Durant. We were talking about this before we started recording, David. What's your plan B? Because I just gave you a bunch of names. What do you think the plan B is?
Yeah, we were talking about this because you were a little surprised to hear it, but I don't think Miami has one. Like, I think you can talk yourself into a lot of these names and everything else like that, but I think their plan B is basically, well, let's sit it out this year. As much as it might be wide open, we also know that even acquiring KD wouldn't necessarily have put us over the top. And that being the case, let's reset for a year. Let's run it back. The 3 words every Heat fan wants to hear. And let's kind of figure it out and see what we can get at the trade deadline for a guy like Rozier, get picks, get a young player, maybe something that can give us and poise us to build for the future because just weren't able to get anything done. Like they're swinging for the fences, and guess what? Sometimes you hit a home run, and sometimes you just wind up striking out. And I think we have to prepare yourselves for either option. And so, I think for Miami's scenario or Miami's point of view, I just don't think that they have that plan B. KD, you can talk yourself into right away. Everybody else, there's a lot of questions about, well, why would we even do this, or why would those other teams even do this? So I maybe there's a name out there. It just doesn't seem like Miami's ever really one of those teams that has a surprise move up their sleeve. And I don't know if they're going to shake something free. Again, Desmond Bane wasn't on the market until he was, and the next thing you know, he's an Orlando Magic player. Even Luka Doncic, again, that was not a name that anybody expected to be traded. So is Miami setting themselves up for a possible trade next season or an acquisition next season? Maybe. It could very well play out that way. But if that's the case, they seem awfully committed to getting KD this summer. And if that falls through, I don't know what their plan B is. Like I said, I just don't think they have one.
It felt like Giannis or Kevin Durant for a long time, for a lot of teams, not just Miami. And now all of a sudden it feels like, well, it sounds like Giannis is staying in Milwaukee and Kevin Durant's only going to be able to get traded to one team. And now what? And I think there's going to be a lot of teams just looking around after Durant is eventually traded and asking, well, now what? Now what do we do? And maybe they call about some of these other players. Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. are both eligible for extensions in Memphis. Like Memphis is telling everybody that's asking, hey, we only traded Desmond Bane. We're not looking to tear it down. We just wanted to trade. We're just trading Desmond Bane here. If they sign those guys to extensions, they're off the market for a while here now. I don't know what the Trae Young thing is or the LaMelo Ball market. Like all these names that are bandied about all the time. The Hawks have been ostensibly trying to trade Trae Young for 3 years now, and they haven't done it. You know, are they ever going to do it? I don't know, and I don't know that if they did, they would trade him within their own division where they got to see him 4 times a year in Miami. So, there's all that stuff there, but I do nothing is a little strong because you could still go out and sign some free agents. They have the mid-level exception. Do you do a little bit of fluffing the pillow around the edges and go sign a free agent, go add a backup point guard or a shooter or something like that, But David, to your point, that would essentially amount to running it back. Not enough, right?
Yeah.
But then what does that look like? That looks like trying to do this all again in 2026, where you can have a ton of money available. Mm-hmm. I still have my doubts about what the free agent class is going to look like in 2026, because I think a lot of the guys who are technically able to be free agents are going to sign extensions and be off the market before we even get close to that. But you'd still have the money to do something, right? You'd have the money to make a trade, absorb players into that space, whatever it might be. And you would have a lot of optionality there. So maybe it's, hey, we didn't get Kevin Durant. Let's take somebody at 20. Let Bam and Tyler Hero keep doing this thing. Kel'el Ware, Jaime Jaquez, Nikola Jovic, they keep developing. And to your point, maybe something shakes loose around February and we could do something then. Because maybe by February, Giannis is like, you know what? Actually, this isn't working. I want out. Or something like that, right? You just hope that another option reveals itself by February. So
yeah. It's disappointing, right? But I mean, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. To your point, though, like even making minor moves, like it just wouldn't be much. It wouldn't amount to anything. You know, maybe somebody pops, but I don't see it. Like we were talking about all the other options, Kuminga, etc. Like those just don't feel. They don't feel like the kind of move that Miami is willing to make, or again, like that the other teams are willing to make. And that being the case, you kind of have to hope for something better. I don't know. It's just
we have to talk about it.
No doubt.
It's on the board, right?
Yeah,
no doubt. It has to be mentioned as a possibility. You can't force teams to trade stars to you. The Heat know that better than anybody else, right? So that'll do it for us today. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NBA Big Board Show. NBA draft expert Rafael Barlow reacts to every workout, interview, and rumor leading up to the NBA draft. Find Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.